Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a podcast that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn. Joining me tonight as guest curator is David Rosen, host of the Piecing It Together podcast. David, thank you so much for joining me on My Weekly Mixtape.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this. I love making myself a mixtape, and I think we got something really cool here.
Well, then let me start by asking you my first-timers question, which is, what does the word mixtape mean to you?
Yeah, back in the day, of course, it meant something tangible and, mixtapes or mix CDs even a little bit later on. Nowadays, I think it's kind of interchangeable with playlists. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of lazy at this stage of my life. And so, they've made it very easy for us. And, as a musician myself, I'm not exactly a big fan of the streaming services, but, it certainly makes it easier to put together a mix like this. And basically just picking songs that either you love or that fit together, depending on what kind of a mix that you want to make.
Well, the mix that we're going to make tonight is another Songs About episode. And that kind of episode is where David and I chose a random object and we craft a playlist dedicated to that object. And tonight, that object is guitars. So, David, what were you looking for in the songs you brought to the discussion this evening?
Yeah, I think for me, it was specifically like celebrating the guitar. Like, I think that was kind of my entry point. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do this because I know when you first came to me, it was like specifically song about a guitar. But then as soon as I started making my list, and there's some certainly that are about a guitar, but they started just being about like, the love of playing guitar, the love of, your guitar, and what a guitar can do for you and what you could put out into the world with a guitar. So it really became more about like celebrating guitars within the actual song and the songwriting and the lyrics.
And that was very much where I was going with my pick of songs, sometimes where the guitar is used as an object within the storytelling of the song. Sometimes it's the actual guitar that is the piece of the song's affection, if you will, or it's about the love of the instrument in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's get down to business, because tonight, as I mentioned at the top of the show, David and I are curating a Songs About Guitars mixtape, and we're going to use the old cassette deck approach. David, as my special guest, will begin side A with his first song choice, and then I'll add a song that I feel best follows up that choice. We'll then flip-flop choosing songs until we've mapped out 10 songs for side A. We'll then give our mixtape a proverbial flip, and we'll map out side B, only this time I'll kick things off with David choosing second. Our overall goal for this episode is to craft the best Songs About Guitars mixtape possible through only 20 songs. At the end of the show, you can take our conversation to the next level by visiting the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com to give our final mixtape a listen via the embedded playlist. And if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. There you can enjoy ad-free episodes of the show, become a future guest, and so much more, such as chiming in on the weekly episode topics, which several of the mixtapers have done tonight, and I'd like to shout out a couple of those suggestions. Tom Hutchinson chimed in with While My Guitar Gently Weeps, saying it's his favorite Beatles song. However, the version by Tom Petty, Prince, and Jeff Lynne for the 2004 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is an incredible cover and amazes him. It amazes me as well. Chad Lamassa echoed Tom 100%, as he was going to chime in with both of those versions as well, but instead he added Lucille by B.B. King. Sherry Thomas chimed in with Guitar by Prince. Philip Bergman chimed in with Guitar Man by Jerry Reed, Guitar Boogie Shuffle by The Virtues, Play Me Like You Play Your Guitar by Dwayne Eddy, and Yakety Axe by Chet Atkins. And Seeker chimed in with Axe Grinder by the Hoodoo Gurus, an Aussie psychedelic rock band, saying they also have a 1985 album titled Mars Needs Guitars. So a 2-for-1 there. I could dig it. Once again, if you'd like to join the Patreon Mixtaper family and chime in for future episodes, you could do so as well at patreon.com/myweeklymixtape. And David, with that, I'm officially going to press the record button on our mixtape and pass the mic to you. Which O2 or song about guitars are you using to kick off tonight's playlist?
This is the first song that I thought of when you came to me with this concept, and it is Tom Petty's Into the Great Wide Open from the album Into the Great Wide Open from 1991. This is a song about just going out there into the world with your guitar and crafting a path for yourself. And of course, you know, starting out into a world of music. And really, when it comes to singing about a guitar, like, you have to be a musician who is like kind of speaking to the experience that you had, taking that leap, basically. And I mean, there's kind of no better song about that than this one from Tom Petty. And Tom Petty is just amazing, and I kind of think belongs on almost any mixtape.
Well, considering he's my favorite artist of all time, I'm never going to argue that. 1991's Into the Great Wide Open is one of my favorite Tom Petty albums. I absolutely love the entire album. It's up there with Wildflowers, Full Moon Fever, and Damn the Torpedoes for me. But this is Tom Petty at some of his storytelling best. He's done it throughout his entire career. You think about songs like The Last DJ. This is just an extension of that. Surprisingly, though, this song was only played live by Tom Petty and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers 134 times, according to setlist.fm. And to put that into some perspective, Learning to Fly has been played over 500 times live. So this is kind of, though it was a big hit, it's kind of a deeper live cut for the band. And obviously everybody remembers the smash hit video on MTV with Johnny Depp as the Eddie character.
Sure.
The only thing that truly bothers me about this video and this song is that the video version is longer and you get some tasty Benmont Tench moments, as well as some beautiful Mike Campbell guitar licks that are missing from the original studio version. So I'm hoping the Tom Petty estate at some point releases the video version of this song, because it's truly complete in that version as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, that would be great. I would love to get that extended video cut at some point, because any excuse to get some of that extra musicianship from that band, I'm down for that.
Well, following up Tom Petty, I mean, one of the first songs I thought of when we talked about songs about guitars, it's like, what's one of the first guitars you think about when you think about guitars? And for me, that would be B.B. King's Lucille. So shout out to Patreon mixtaper Chad Lamassa, because he chimed in with this one. I am lockstep with you. 1968's Lucille, and I'm going to go with the title track. I mean, to hear the story of why one of the most legendary guitars came to be, who doesn't want to hear that? And here, very much like Tom Petty in Into the Great Wide Open, this is B.B. King in storytelling form. Only through this song, he's pretty much talking to you as the song is playing. There's a lot less of a melody to what he's saying, more than a cadence and a rhythm, as he's kind of giving this poem about Lucille. And I don't want to offer too much commentary on the story, because the story of the guitar kind of lies the magic. And if you've never heard it before, I don't want to spoil that, especially coming from somebody who hosts a movie podcast. I think you respect to go spoiler free, and it's really hard to spoil a song.
Yeah.
But in this instance, when there's a story in the song, that's where you can spoil it. And I don't want to do that. However, I have a personal Lucille story. In my early days in radio, I worked in a radio network in New York City, and I was given a stack of tapes to bring to one of the studios. And as I'm carrying this stack, it kind of covers right up to about the tip of my nose, right underneath my eyeballs, holding about maybe a dozen or so tapes. And my boss is talking to me, so I'm stepping backwards in the hallway slowly, hearing what she has to say, and kind of working my way to get the tapes to the studio. And as she's talking, I feel this hand hit my right shoulder. And I hear, whoa, 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 young man. And I'm like, oh, God. And I kind of stop short. And I turn around, and it's B.B. King holding Lucille.
Wow.
And I'm holding these tapes, so I'm kind of like looking through the top of so I kind of lower them as much as I can, and my jaw's on the ground, because here's this legendary blues musician holding one of the most iconic guitars. And I said, Mr. King, I am so sorry, sir. He's like, you are doing your job, young man. However, if you knock me down, I'll just get right back up. But Lucille doesn't know how to take a fall very well. And I was like, well, I backed up, and I'm like, after you, Mr. King. And he walked by and he said, have a good day, young man. And he went off into another studio. But that was my moment and my brush with greatness. And I felt like that was the perfect way for me to start my contribution to guitars tonight.
Amazing. I love it. Where is Lucille now? Do we know that? I'm guessing in some museum or something.
The actual guitar, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I wonder. It's got to be somewhere, like, I think everybody would want to see that, because that is, like you said, it's just legendary, and it's one of the most important guitar players of all time, his cherished guitar. So it's got to be.
Well, I hate to say it, but because as we're talking, obviously we have the internet, it's sold at a U.S. auction for $280,000 back in 2019.
Hopefully it's got a good home. Hopefully they're going to do something good with it.
I hope so too. But obviously you can get the replicas out there, so at least there's that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we've got Tom Petty, my favorite artist of all time. Lucille, one of my favorite guitars of all time. Where do we go from here?
We have to go to a guitar pick with the Tenacious D song, The Pick of Destiny, from the soundtrack to the album, The Pick of Destiny from 2006, the film. And this is, honestly, when this song came out, I was, I want to say, I was 25 at the time, and it was probably the coolest song I'd ever heard in my life at that moment. It's just Jack Black being purely ridiculous. And of course, doing one of these kinds of movie plot recap songs where he's just kind of talking about like the events of the movie itself. And it is just the coolest, just most awesome riff. And we love Jack Black as a singer as well, and just what he brings to that song is incredible. But Cage is just awesome on it, and yeah, singing about basically this pick that was chipped off of the devil's tooth, and which is of course a play on many of these classic old blues tales. But it is such a fun movie, such a ridiculous movie for anyone who's a musician or into guitars, and it is an awesome song, and I think it deserves a place on here.
Wow, I did not expect that coming out of Lucille, but because he who is sleazy is easy to pleasy, I will take that pick any day of the week. What a fun kind of cult comedy classic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And if you're a musician, it steps that up even higher.
Definitely.
All right. I wasn't expecting to go there, and you went to something that it's kind of comedic, the song. So this gives me an open door to put in a song that I didn't know how I would ever be able to include it in this list, because this song's a little bit of an outlier. It's a punk song, but it's a tongue-in-cheek punk song, and there's a little bit of a comedic aspect to it. But now that you've introduced comedy to the mix, I easily know what I'm going with here. From 1988's Beelzebubba, I am going to go with the Dead Milkmen's The Guitar Song. Now, this is the album that most people will be familiar with the name The Dead Milkmen because of Punk Rock Girl. It was a video staple on MTV. But 4 songs later on the album is this masterpiece of an ode to the guitar. And the song, like The Pick of Destiny, doesn't take itself very seriously at all.
Sure.
Repeating, what's that sound coming out of the hole in the wood, at points just screaming it over this tranquil, almost acoustic music bed. It is a real goofy song, but every time I'm playing the guitar and I'm kind of warming up and tuning it, sometimes I will go, hey, what's that sound coming out of the hole in the wood? Like, it's a fun song, and I had an excuse to use it now.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that you brought this one up because this is a very fun, ridiculous song. It also reminds me so much of just like walking around a record store and just kind of like browsing vinyl. At my family, we have a record store here in Las Vegas, Wax Trax Records, and every time I'm in a record store, you hear like these weird little goofy, songs like this, and this just totally reminds me of that kind of song that you would hear in that kind of setting, and it's a really fun one.
Yeah, the Dead Milkmen are one of the more underrated punk rock groups based out of Philadelphia. If anybody wants to go down a really fun, sometimes not too serious, sometimes quirky, and sometimes even offensive, depending on who you are, rabbit hole, check out the Dead Milkmen. But now, David, I'm throwing it back to you. We've done a pair of really serious songs, followed up by a pair of not so serious, probably comedic songs. So where do we go from here?
I guess we'll go heartfelt because I'm bringing up Olivia Rodrigo, a new artist, and her song Scared of My Guitar. It's from the expanded, spilled edition of her album Guts from 2023, which she is one of my favorite like current artists right now. I think she's doing like really, really great stuff. She's got that kind of hard on her sleeve kind of emotional thing that a lot of these kinds of artists, these pop singers have nowadays, but mixed with like a real serious musicianship. And this is a song about how she's scared of her guitar because she knows that even though she can lie to her boyfriend, who's right there in the room with her, she can't lie to the guitar while she's writing a song. And it's going to get the truth out of her no matter what. And it's a really clever song. And it's tough nowadays to find new artists that you like really connect with. And it's really exciting when one comes along who is just so damn good. And this is a fantastic album. And the regular version of Guts was great. This extended version added 4 more songs, and they're all really, really good too, this being one of them. And it's probably the newest song that we're going to have on this list. I would encourage people to check it out who maybe are like, oh, it's not rock and roll. I'm not going to go check out Olivia Rodrigo, but I think you'll be surprised if you check out her album. You'll really like it.
Yeah, my oldest is a big fan of Olivia Rodrigo, and I understand why. Mm-hmm. I'm going to give a hot take here. This might be my favorite Olivia Rodrigo song, period. There's such a poetic beauty to the song. I mean, the lyric, so why's there a pit in my gut in the shape of you, which when you're sitting there picturing her holding the guitar, it's a very visual description. She's holding the guitar in her gut, but she's actually talking about the pit of her gut, like in her soul.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's literal and figurative simultaneously. That adds an immediate punch to the opening. The song's beautiful, and it's quite the pivot from the Dead Milkmen, but I like it. I like it a lot.
Absolutely. You gotta go around. That's part of what makes a good mixtape, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to stay in this kind of serious mode here and go with another lyric that really hits me from another female artist who sadly, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And the lyric I'm going with is, and she plays along while I sing out my blues. And I'm going to go with Amy Winehouse's Cherry. Now, that was originally on her Frank album as a studio cut. However, it's almost relegated to this kind of like in-betweener track because on streaming, it's just kind of slash tacked onto the end of You Sent Me Flying. So I'm actually going to go with the 2007 version that's live from Shepherd's Bush on the album I Told You I Was Trouble live in London. Because the studio version's only 90 seconds long. It's beautiful, but it feels brief. It feels like a transitional piece on that album. This live version opens it up to a nice 3-minute and change song, and the guitar solo adds this dynamic tension because it feels as if almost the guitar is singing back to her, saying, I love you too, but through the notes being played. So it's a very well-crafted story that's being told. And I mean, at the end of the day, God, Amy Winehouse's voice is just It's hypnotizing. What a
Oh
beautiful
yeah.
song. What a beautiful song and what a beautiful voice. And just gut wrenching that we don't have anything new from her.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a solid song. I had actually never heard this song when you brought it up to me, and it's a very good song. And it's interesting, like bringing up a song like this along with something like BB King's Lucille, which, Amy Winehouse being someone who, her whole vibe is like this whole retro thing and bringing back these styles that weren't really in vogue at the time when she came out. And she kind of brought everybody along with her into celebrating all this stuff. And I feel like just bringing back the celebration of the guitar and a song like a BB King Lucille is something that was like clearly on her mind when she wrote this.
You don't think of Amy Winehouse as the guitarist because she was always the front woman on the stage, but she does play. And that part of it is where the songwriting aspect of her came out, but she's kind of telling the story of how she presents her stories in music. And I think it's just a perfect follow-up to Olivia Rodrigo because they're both telling similar stories about how the guitar is kind of part of their voice. And I feel like lyrically, these two flow very nicely back to back.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, following that up, we are up to track 7. What do you got?
Well, actually, perfect that it goes after that Amy Winehouse Cherry song, because I was just saying about how Cherry was probably inspired by Lucille. This one is from one of my favorite artists, Ryan Adams, and it's from his 2005 album Cold Roses. It's called Rosebud, and it is inspired by Jerry Garcia's guitar, Rosebud, which I love the idea of, an artist singing about their influences, basically. And this is a song about like, it's kind of just like almost a little silly-ish, just like about like when I pick up my guitar, I don't really know what to sing or what to play, but I think about Rosebud. I think about Jerry Garcia's guitar and I just start trying to play like that, basically. And that's where the song comes from. And a lot of people would compare that kind of Cold Roses era of Ryan Adams. His style and genre changes from album to album after his like 20 something albums over the years. But that one is very Grateful Dead style. And so it's pretty obvious where his influence was at that very moment. And I just think it's a fantastic song. It's kind of a deep cut on the album, but I wanted to include it here.
I think you summed up the track perfectly. You could hear the love of the Dead coming through this song and throughout the whole album. But there's a production style on this album that to me feels like a tip of the cap from Ryan Adams to Neil Young's Harvest. If you listen to Rosebud up against a song like Out on the Weekend or Heart of Gold, there's this tone that kind of sits over the production that it feels like they're from the same era. And I think that, and again, I'm guessing, but from listening to the lyrics on the album and where Ryan Adams was coming from, I kind of get the vibe that he was trying to make it sound like a 70s era Dead album, which does have the same output and sound. If you think about some of the acoustic songs on Working Man's Dead to Neil Young's Harvest, there's like kind of this sound of that era, and it comes through shining in this one.
Absolutely.
So following that up, I think I know what I'm going to do. I am going to go a lot newer with a song that came out in the last now 4 years. And I remember during COVID, there was not much new going on, but there was a documentary that Bruce Springsteen put out about his new album at the time, Letter to You. And to me, that was like, oh, thank God, something to watch that's like musical and fun.
Sure.
And there's a part of that documentary that focuses on this one song, House of a Thousand Guitars. And that part to me was a very powerful part of the documentary. The song is fantastic. It feels like a classic Bruce Springsteen in the E Street Band song. And Bruce Springsteen had talked about this song to the Irish Times. And I want to read this quote here because I think it's kind of sums it up better than I could. House of a Thousand Guitars attempts to define the world that I attempted to create with my audience and my listeners from the beginning. It's a world of value, of code, of honor, fun, and joy. And that's a world I create when I walk on stage at night and my audience walks through the door. We live in that world for 2 or 3 hours, and then we leave and take that world with us and hope that it sustains us for as long as it can. The house of 1,000 guitars is the house we built, and within this house, these things matter. That's why I picked the song. Like, I mean, that's the love of music and the love of the instrument and how it brings the crowd and the fans and the musician and the artists together. And to me, this song kind of celebrates that. And I also want to say, if you're a Bruce Springsteen fan, episode 53, there's the Ultimate Bruce Springsteen playlist with Jesse Jackson, host of the Set Lusting Bruce podcast, who's another proud member of the Pantheon podcast family. I am not going to spoil, like the movie thing I said, I'm not going to spoil if House of 1,000 Guitars made the list, but it's definitely in my bank of songs that I'm bringing to the table. So if you like Bruce, you want to go back and check that one out. But following up Ryan Adams, Bruce Springsteen's House of 1,000 Guitars.
I actually almost picked this song.
Nice.
This was one on my mind, but I didn't. But I love that quote that you brought up, and not very surprising that Bruce Springsteen knows how to articulate his love of music and of bringing the crowd together and and of guitars. He knows how to kind of tell a story and how to celebrate music. So yeah, it's a great quote though. And yeah, Set Lusting Bruce, great podcast. One of the first podcasts I ever guested on.
Awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Well, coming out, we've each got one song left on side A. So what is your last contribution for track 9?
So I wanted to mix things up a little bit, and I got a hip hop song in here. I've got the Fugees' Killing Me Softly from 1996 as the score. When I first was thinking about this one, I was like, maybe I should go back to Roberta Flack, but then I was like, actually, that was a cover too. So you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to go with the Fugees, and it's a great song, and it's obviously with the strumming my pain with his finger line, it fits in with our whole mixtape here, and it is about somebody who is performing music and how that makes somebody feel, and so I think it fits well enough, and it's just a great track and was a huge hit and deservedly so. And it's always great when you hear this song pop on. I'm always down to listen to this one.
I'm glad that you mentioned it was a cover of Roberta Flack, but like you said, wait, that's a cover. Most people don't realize that the song was originally recorded by Lori Lieberman in 1972, but Roberta Flack's was the first one that charted and became that massive hit that it was. But there's this interesting fact. It did not appear on the Billboard US Hot 100 because it was never officially released as a commercial single, which was a rule at that time. However, it reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 airplay chart and number 1 on the Hot R&B airplay chart. If you're into that whole wait, that's a cover song kind of movement, episode 33 of the show, we do a whole dive into songs that people don't know if they're, wait, that's a cover? That's a whole episode dedicated to that. This year, there's been a lot of talk about Lauryn Hill because the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill topped Apple Music's 100 Best Albums list. And I'll just say this. One, Miseducation is an absolute masterpiece, a brilliant work of art, and I absolutely love the album. But lists like the 100 Best Albums are kind of hard to quantify because the fact of the matter is we're not talking factual things here. How many records have been sold? How many streams has happened? That's kind of putting together a list based on fact. So here we're talking about a collective group of people's opinions to kind of put the list together. So while I love Miseducation, I think John Coltrane's A Love Supreme should have at least been in contention for the top spot, and it didn't come anywhere near it. So the one thing I'll say about this list, I love that it brings up dialogue and musical conversations. So if that's the purpose for it, then so be it. It's creating musical conversations. But I'd love to kind of hear more about how that list was really compiled, because as much as I love the album, I question Why? How? Where?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. It's impossible. And this comes up all the time in the world of movies too. It's just trying to rank the definitive of all time list. It's hard enough to make a list of 10 songs about guitars that we want to talk about. You know what I
Amen.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, closing out side A, I wanted to just go with one that is an obvious home run, the song that a lot of people probably have on their mind tonight, an obvious pick, one of the biggest rock songs of all time, released as a single in 1958, and it was credited as the first rock and roll hit about rock and roll stardom. We're going to go with the legendary Chuck Berry and Johnny B. Good. In 2021, it ranked 33 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time, as well as number 1 on their 100 Greatest Guitar Songs of All Time. It also is included in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's 500 Songs That Shaped Rock and Roll. And to think, if it wasn't for Chuck's cousin, Marvin Berry, and the Starlighters calling Chuck during some high school dance, he may never have been inspired to write this masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We were just talking about those, the rankings, the top 100 albums of all time or whatever. Like, I think this is one song that I can't imagine anyone complaining about it showing up on a best songs list. It's just, who doesn't like this song?
I've never met anyone that doesn't. And obviously, if you don't get the reference I made before, go back and watch Back to the Future. However, cover songs, sure. This will either get praise or venom, but look no further than Judas Priest's version of Johnny B. Good from 1988's Ram It Down, as well as, to bring up another movie reference, the soundtrack to the 80s comedy of the same name, Johnny B. Good.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that movie.
A lot of people did, but the song sticks out when you hear Rob Halford belting out Johnny B. Good at his stratospheric levels.
Nice.
Well, there you have it, folks. Side A of our Songs About Guitars playlist, which kicked off with Tom Petty's Into the Great Wide Open, B.B. King's Lucille, Tenacious D's The Pick of Destiny, The Dead Milkmen's The Guitar Song, Olivia Rodrigo's Scared of My Guitar, Amy Winehouse's Cherry, live from Shepherd's Bush, Ryan Adams' Rosebud, Bruce Springsteen's House of a Thousand Guitars, Fugees' Killing Me Softly, and Chuck Berry's Johnny B. Good. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Now, David, why don't you tell people a little bit about piecing it together, as well as how they can connect with you and the show?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You can find Piecing It Together on all of the podcast apps, and I'm very, very active on social media at Piecing Pod. But what Piecing It Together is a podcast about movies and what movies inspired them. Me and guests from all over the world for the past over 6 years now. We will take a look at a new movie and kind of use it as a jumping off point to discuss other films that deal with similar ideas, themes, filmmaking styles, whatever it may be that we think might make these other movies an influence on this new release. And it's been a really fun ride. I'm now doing these live episodes of the show where I do it right there in a movie theater with a panel of 3 guests right after the movie plays, and hoping to continue to build that out. But I do weekly episodes of just the regular one-on-ones, and it's something that has been a really fun ride for movie fans, and you end up with a big list of other films to check out that deal with these similar ideas by the end of the conversation. I'm also a musician as well. You can find my albums under my name, David Rosen. I have, I think, 8 at this point albums out. I lost track, but a whole bunch of albums of instrumental music. It's all kind of a mix of electronica, industrial, new age, alternative rock. I also score films, so that film score kind of vibe to it as well. So you can check out my albums. My most recent one is actually called More Content, a kind of tongue-in-cheek play at the era that we're living in right now. But you can find them on all the streaming services under my name, David Rosen.
Well, kicking off side B, I am going to first make an admission of guilt. I feel like I've been a little selfish in this episode because between B.B. King's Lucille and my opening track for side B, I am taking up 30 minutes of our listeners' time musically. However, it's a very, very well spent 30 minutes of music, if you ask me, because, between B.B. King's Lucille and the title track to 1976's 2112 by Rush, that's 30 awesome minutes. Now, without getting too deep into the woods of this song, Rush's fandom site actually sums up the story quite well. So again, without spoiling the ending of the song, if you haven't heard it yet, in the year 2062, a galaxy-wide war results in the union of all planets under the rule of the Red Star of the Solar Federation. By 2112, the world is controlled by the priests of the temples of Syrinx, who determine the content of all reading matter, songs, pictures, every facet of life. A man discovers a guitar and learns to play different music. When he goes to present to the priests of the temples, they destroy the guitar. He goes into hiding and dreams of a world before the Solar Federation. Upon awakening, ... Listen to the 20-minute masterpiece and find out for yourself, because Rush knows how to tell a story. If you're a Rush fan, episode 52, the Ultimate Rush playlist with fellow Pantheon Podcast Network mate Steve from the Something for Nothing, a Rush fan cast episode, will have a lot more to fill that Rush void in your life. But when I think about a song that's built around a guitar as part of the story, the way you started off Into the Great Wide Open as the guitar being part of Eddie's story, here we've got Rush and 2112.
That is a hell of a story in this song. I've never been a big Rush guy. Like, I don't dislike them. I've just never dug into their music or anything. So I wasn't really familiar with this, aside from just knowing it was a Rush song title. So I just didn't really know what it was going in. And as it was playing out, I was like, where is this going? This is a crazy song. But yeah, it's a cool song though. And one of these days, I think I'm going to have to finally go on the Rush journey and dig in, because I always like everything I hear from them.
I think you'll be blown away, to be honest. Yeah. It's one of those things that sometimes when you hear certain songs picked out here and there, they make sense in that moment. But when you hear them in the Rush catalog and in the album space, the songs take on bigger meanings. And I think that's what makes Rush fans so intense about their love of the songs, because within the albums, the songs really do take on a higher meaning.
Yeah, absolutely. I could totally see that. I could see, especially for a group like that it's, once you dig in, it just keeps enveloping everything and you just kind of can't get it back out.
Well, now I've given you 20 minutes here to think about your next pick. So
Sure. Yeah.
As the song is finally winding down.
Yeah.
And we are hearing, attention, all planets of the Solar Federation, we have assumed control. Where are you going from here?
We are going to, I think, one of the most obvious picks for this list, and that is Foreigner's Jukebox Hero from 1981's 4. This is just, it's such an obvious song for a celebration of the guitar. This song paints such a picture of someone who has head hung low and in the rain, and he hears that band playing, and then he hears that one guitar, and then it just changes his life. It goes right along with Tom Petty, which I started the first A side with, a guitar being kind of that catalyst for changing your life and taking you on a journey. I think it's a great song. It's a fun song. It's a totally singable song, honestly. And another thing, I don't remember if it was Guitar Hero or Rock Band, but there was a moment when those games were super, super popular. And I feel like this was probably the single most played song on one of those games. Everybody would always pick this song, and it was always just such a blast to play along to.
Well, I know that Patreon mixtaper David Lee Smith is a huge Guitar Hero guy. I actually watched him on YouTube play Eruption on the hard level on Guitar Hero and just absolutely annihilate it. Ridiculous. He'll know the answer to that question. So David, when you're listening to this, chime in and let us know, and I'll follow up on social media. The song reached number 26 on the Billboard US Hot 100. I actually thought it was a top 20 hit, so I was surprised by that fact. And another interesting fact about the song, Thomas Dolby plays the main synthesizers on the track. And the Stories lead singer Ian Lloyd and Robert Mutt Lang are singing background vocals on the track. I also like the fact that in kind of a nod or a similar fashion of 2112, there's this kind of storytelling in the song. You know, kid gets sold out of show, kid hears guitar, kid has epiphany, kid learns to play guitar, kid becomes rock star. You know, the jukebox hero.
It's that old story. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm not going to spoil the ending. This too has an ending to it that I could spoil. So I'm not going to do that. Even though you probably know Jukebox Hero, I don't want to spoil the ending of Jukebox Hero. So what I'm going to do is move on to the next track, and I'm going to cheat because it is my show, and every now and then I could cheat. And I'm going to cheat here because technically on streaming, this is broken out as 2 songs. But growing up listening to this album on vinyl, if I hear the flamenco guitar opening to Little Guitars in Little Guitar intro, I want to hear the entire Little Guitar song. However, if the Little Guitar song starts and I don't hear the flamenco acoustic guitar intro, I feel like I got cheated. So I am doing a twofer on this, going with Little Guitars intro into Little Guitars because it's just kind of wrong to separate them. And we're doing a guitar episode, so I feel like mentioning Eddie just has to happen at some point.
Sure.
And I'd be remiss. I sound like I'm a promo whore tonight, and I apologize, but episode 46, the ultimate Van Halen playlist with Eric Senich of the Van Halen News Desk and Patreon mixtaper Cactus Pete. It's a feature film length episode of the show because Van Halen needed that kind of time. And I won't spoil if this song made the cut or not, but how could it not make the cut tonight? It's a song about guitars with some of the most amazing guitar work ever. So, Little Guitars.
Great song, great pick. This is one of those picks on this list that, like, you know, I think about it and I'm like, you know, of course Van Halen had to have something that would fit here, but a lot of like favorites that you would think have a song about guitars, I was like, God, they got to have something, and there wasn't anything. And so I'm glad Van Halen has a song that could fit this list, because how could you not have them on this list, like you said?
Right. So we got Eddie on the list. We got Chuck Berry on the list. We got Foreigners, Jukebox Hero. So we're checking off some of the big boxes. What do we have next?
We've got Dire Straits, which we gotta also include on this list. We're going to go with Sultans of Swing from the self-titled Dire Straits album, 1978. For some reason, I remember not liking this song when I was a kid. And just later on in life, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, this song just absolutely rules. It is, I will say, though, that it exists in this level of cool that just doesn't really work nowadays, but like worked so well back then. And I think that's part of its charm, though. And I think part of what makes it so great. And, you know, it fits in with all the storytelling. It fits in with songs about, you know, guitar players and what they can do with the guitar. And it's just an absolutely killer track.
From their self-titled 1978 masterpiece. I mean, I love the story behind this song. And that story is that Mark Knopfler went to a bar in Ipswich on a rainy night, and this, we'll just call it not so great band, was finishing up a set for like the bartender and like 2 people at the bar. When they ended, apparently the singer unironically said, "Good night and thank you. We are the Sultans of Swing."
Amazing.
And Mark thought that was hysterical because, as he puts it, and I quote, "Sultans they were not." Now, there's a reason this song is covered all the time by aspiring guitarists on TikTok and on like YouTube short videos, because this is an insanely hard guitar solo to tackle, especially when you're trying to match the tone that Mark brought to this song. If you add distortion to the song, some of the notes you could kind of bridge together easier than the way that Mark pulls it off with that clean, crisp, tight tone. So
Yeah.
this song is almost a trap when you think like, oh, that can't be that tough to play. But when you listen to it and you realize he's playing it clean, it's
Hmm.
ridiculous.
There's no room for mistakes whatsoever. And I mean, that's why he's up there when we talk about some of the best guitar players.
And I am going to cheat again. I am sorry, my weekly mixtape listeners, but Brian Colburn is going rogue tonight. You just picked Mark Knopfler. However, you picked Dire Straits, and I found a loophole to cheat, and I'm going to take that loophole because I want to talk about Mark Knopfler again. I'm still on a high because just a few episodes ago, episode 70.5, the bonus episode, I had Guy Fletcher from Dire Straits on the podcast to talk about Mark Knopfler's Guitar Heroes Going Home theme from Local Hero. And Guy talks about, because we kind of go through a lot of Mark Knopfler's career and guys with Dire Straits in the episode, the 1991 duo album of Chet Atkins and Mark Knopfler called Neck and Neck. And he talks about this song on that episode, which is why I'm promo whore Brian again, apparently. But I'm going to go with one that Patreon mixtaper Philip Bergman chimed in with the original, which was Chet Atkins' Yakety Axe. But I'm going to go with the one from 1991's Neck and Neck that features Mark Knopfler and lyrics on this version because it adds, again, a little bit more of a storytelling vibe to it. And it's a cheat, but it's pretty cool to come out of Mark Knopfler into Mark Knopfler with a legend like Chet Atkins, who's really kind of he's the star of this song because it's his original, which is a remake from a song, Yakety Sax. However, it's a Chet Atkins tune that Mark is kind of sitting back on this duo album. And I feel like it's a good cheat to go Dire Straits into a feature of Mark. And I can't get enough of Mark's guitar playing anyway. So there you go.
Absolutely. This is a fun pick. And I was trying to kind of place it, like I was trying to imagine when this song came out, like guitar nerds at the time must have just like, it must have blown their minds hearing this.
It blows my mind to this day hearing it.
Yeah.
All right. What are we going to follow up the pair of Mark Knopfler tracks with?
A great songwriter, let's put it that way. I'm going to go with Jason Isbell's Something to Love from his 2017 album, The Nashville Sound. This is just a fantastic song that closes out the album and it's really basically about passing down music from generation to generation. It's in the lyrics to the song, he's talking about how he learned a love of music from his family, sitting out on the porch and learning chords and learning to play and learning to sing. And now he's passing that down to his child. And it's just a real celebration of music and a beautiful song. And I think it beautifully, closes out the album, which is one of his best albums, I think. But as far as like we're talking celebrations of the guitar, I think this does that while also celebrating the art of songwriting as well, which, of course, is just so tied together with the exact same thing.
Believe it or not, I've never heard a Jason Isbell song that I don't like, but I've never done a catalog dive of all of his albums. I really need to do that because when you talk about a lyric, I know you brought this up in the story, but the lyric itself, we made music on the porch on Sunday nights. Old men with old guitars smoking Winston Lights.
Amazing.
So vivid.
Yeah.
Like it paints the picture. And it's just such a vulnerable, open sound in this song. And he is such a gifted songwriter.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm going to tap into to follow it up because you scooped my favorite songwriter of all time with the first song of the episode. So I'm going to go with my second favorite singer-songwriter of all time.
Okay.
And this is a guy that, when I discovered his music, I didn't even realize I'd already known his music because he's the songwriter to Bonnie Raitt's Thing Called Love and the co-writer to Jeff Healey Band's Angel Eyes, along with Fred Kohler. I'm going to go with John Hiatt and the title track to 1993's Perfectly Good Guitar. A few nights before I shipped off to college my freshman year, I was getting ready to pack, and I'm kind of just flipping through the channels trying to find something to put on as I'm packing. And I stumbled across John's Live from Austin, Texas performance. And all I know is I stopped packing and I just sat there and watched the entire thing. And I instantly became a fan of his entire vibe, just everything about him. And when it was over, I finished up packing and my folks said, before we head out tomorrow, is there anything you need that we got to hit before we whisk you off to college? And I said, I just watched this really awesome special on TV and I got a long drive ahead of me. I'd love to grab this CD for the ride. And before we left, they took me to the music store and I grabbed 1993's Perfectly Good Guitar. And my first drive down to college is filled with memories from this album. And you don't want to smash a Perfectly Good Guitar. This is a song about anti-guitar violence.
Yeah.
And I think that's a message that needs to be put out there, because at the time of this song, Garth Brooks, who was massive, completely blowing up, was making it a point to smash guitars at the end of his shows.
Well, 93, I feel like everybody was.
Oh, sure. And like grunge and punk, but this was mainstream country. This was a completely different audience, but actually, no matter what genre we're talking about here, stop. This is a PSA of epic proportions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I got to admit, I am not really familiar with John Hiatt that much. Like I heard this song, and hearing you describe your love of John Hiatt's songwriting, I really want to take the dive now, because I found this song to be like super silly, but really great. It's, almost borders on novelty in a way, just because of how it's just like this kind of silly idea of like you said, a PSA almost, like do not smash guitars. So now I want to hear like some of his other songwriting and see like where that vibe takes him.
Well, I'll tell you this. You're a movie guy. You host a movie podcast. Have you ever seen the Disney movie that came out? I want to say it was 2003 or 2004, the live action The Country Bears.
It's funny. One of my friends who likes a lot of like movies that don't necessarily have the best reputations was just telling me that he loves that movie and that I need to watch it. So
do I. And a lot of the soundtrack is written by John Hiatt. Including the closing song, which is just a beautiful track. He is a masterful songwriter that just for some reason, like if you know who John Hiatt is, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Why he wasn't bigger is beyond me, because there were other artists that were able to take his songs to new heights. Even when B.B. King and Eric Clapton put out their duo album, Riding with the King, Riding with the King, John Hiatt song.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Wow. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive in. I gotta listen to more for sure.
You do that as I'm diving into Jason Isbell, and now I'm throwing it back to you to follow up that pair of amazing singer-songwriters. What do we got next?
Well, I'm going to Prince for my next pick here.
Nice.
Prince, another guitar god to add to this list, with the song Guitar from a late era album, 2007's Planet Earth. Who doesn't like Prince? But I was always more of a Michael Jackson guy myself, to be honest. But this was one of the like songs that I was just like, oh, you know what? Hell yeah, I'm into this. And of course, who doesn't love like the classic Prince stuff? But I mean of like the later era stuff. But this is just a killer song, and I hadn't heard it in years, but it was kind of in the back of my mind when we started this exercise here, and I was like, I wonder how that song Guitar by Prince holds up, and I went back and listened to it, and I was like, it's Prince. Of course it's great, and it's a great concept for a song, telling this girl that, he loves her, but just not like he loves his guitar. I mean, it's a great like kiss off of a song, great attitude, and it's just a really fun one, and it's got that sense of humor to it, and it's also got some great freaking guitar playing.
Of course, it's Prince. I mean, that goes without saying. I don't think there's any Prince song where you're like, well, that Prince song with the mediocre guitar playing, but
never.
This one is just on another level. Shout out to Patreon Mixtaper Sherry Thomas, who chimed in with this one. This song ranked number 39 on Rolling Stone's list of the 100 best songs from 2007. So It was definitely recognized, and it charted in Belgium, France, Italy, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and the UK, but not in the US. I kind of think we got it wrong. I think the US got it wrong, because this is a great, great track.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I saw him in 2007, actually. I was promoting this. I was working for a label at the time and promoting bands, and yeah, we were promoting this and I got to see him, and of course, amazing, amazing show. But yeah, I don't know why this one just didn't quite take off at this kind of era in his career. It just wasn't, nothing was really like connecting exactly.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a musical bucket list that I won't be able to check off, but man, just a another worldly talent.
Hmm.
And I think I'm going to go back to this talent. And again, I'm not cheating this time because we're going to talk about it. Of course, we're going to talk about it. We have to talk about it. But once again, shout out to a Patreon mixtaper. We are really checking off the boxes and in sync with the Patreon mixtapers tonight. That doesn't happen all the time, but we are in lockstep tonight. Tom Hutchinson, he chimed in with both the Beatles and the Tom Petty Prince version of While My Guitar Gently Weeps. However, we've talked about Tom Petty and we've talked about Prince, so I feel like it's probably fitting to bring George Harrison and Eric Clapton
Yeah.
into the discussion tonight and go off of 1968's The Beatles or the White Album. Rolling Stone ranks it 135 on its list of the 500 greatest songs of all time, 7th on the 100 greatest guitar songs of all time, and number 10 on its list of the Beatles' 100 greatest songs. And in 2008, it ranked number 42 in Guitar World's 2008 list of the 100 greatest guitar solos. Now, the guitar is not the literal focus of the song, but the emotions that the lyrics are conveying are spoken through the lens of the guitar, so to speak. And to me, that's a really interesting way to tell the story. And it's, I think, one of the more powerful George Harrison moments in his time with the Beatles, saying, like, I could write some, like, you get to All Things Must Pass through While My Guitar Gently Weeps. This is George Harrison flexing his songwriting muscles here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I've never been a big Beatles guy. Like, this is another one where it's like, of course, we all love a lot of their songs, but this was always the best I felt. And especially the covers. Like, it's just a great song that has been brought to life in all these amazing ways. You mentioned some of them already, but like, whenever you hear a cover of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, like, you could kind of know whoever it is, they're going to put some kind of spin on it and they're going to connect with it. And it feels like a song that just means a lot to anybody who picks up a guitar.
Well, David, we are down to one last song, and I get to turn it over to you. You started the evening, and now you get to close out the evening. What is going to put the cherry on top of our Songs About Guitars Sunday?
Well, a lot of the picks that I made kind of stretched the original premise in a lot of different ways, but this one is 100% on the money, exactly what you asked me to do. Songs About Guitars. It's James Taylor, Me and My Guitar.
Nice.
It is from 1974's Working Man. And I mean, this is it. This is just a song about a amazing songwriter writing about his guitar, basically, and why he loves it, why he loves writing songs with it, why he loves spending time being a musician, and why he chose this life, and it's a great song, and I think it's a really integral part of a playlist like this.
You're definitely going to score points with my wife on this one. James Taylor is one of her all-time favorites. I've heard all of his albums through her. This is definitely a top 5 James Taylor song for me personally. It's fun. It's funky. The storytelling's incredible. 2 kind of lyrics that stick out to me in this song is he hops up on my knee singing, "Get down, Pops. It's song time." Like, how vivid is that? Then my favorite lyric in this song, which I think really sums up the evening as a whole, "But pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's me and my guitar." And there you have it, folks. Side B of our Songs About Guitars playlist, which kicked off with Rush's 2112, Foreigner's Jukebox Hero, Van Halen's Little Guitars. Yes, I'm throwing the intro in as well. Dire Straits' Sultans of Swing, Chet Atkins and Mark Knopfler's Yakety Axe, Jason Isbell's Something to Love, John Hiatt's Perfectly Good Guitar, Prince's Guitar, The Beatles' While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and James Taylor's Me and My Guitar. Head over to myweeklymixtape.com to hear all the songs we've discussed in this mix through the playlist embedded on the episode page. Well, David Rosen, piecing it together, thank you so much for joining me tonight on My Weekly Mixtape. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
And remember, you can find My Weekly Mixtape on almost all the social media haunts at My Weekly Mixtape. You can also head to myweeklymixtape.com to check out the full catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes. And finally, if you like what you're hearing on the show, you can help me out by either telling a friend, leaving the show a 5-star review wherever you're tuning in, or becoming a Patreon mixtaper at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. There you can enjoy ad-free episodes of the show, become a future guest, and so much more. That's all for this week. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, enjoy the tunes.